All right, guys. Our next guest work speaks for itself as he's become one of the best analysts in combat sports, from BT Sport, the Dan Hardy Breakdown Show, and Full Reptile, home of the best previews and breakdowns. Dan Hardy, back at it again and kind enough to chat fights with us and help us preview UFC 291. I'm excited. Dan, how are you, man?
I'm good. Really good. Really good. How are you guys?
Great, man. Great. It was great to see you doing your thing as well during UFC, being in London and stuff, man. And thanks so much for joining us back on the show. And look, before we get into like this card this coming weekend, a couple of things I want to bring up. First off, this recent shuffle. Everybody was looking forward to Paulo Costa's return. He was set to take on Ikram Aliskerov this weekend, but now he's set to face Khamzat Chimaev instead at UFC 294. Gotta ask, man, what did you make of this crazy turn of events? What do you think of this new matchup now for him?
I just think it's more interesting. You know, I mean, it's the thing is, Paulo Costa's he's a brand in his own right, same as Chimaev is, and to match him up against someone that's not got that kind of star power at this point seems to be a waste. I feel like this is a far more attention generating fight. I think they're both big characters, and I also, I think that, stylistically it's a very interesting fight. I mean, Paulo Costa's clearly going to be the bigger fighter in there, but we know what Chimaev looks like when he gets a hold of somebody, and if he can do that to Costa, it'd be incredibly impressive. And he would solidify himself in the division quite quickly.
100%, man, because it felt for a second like it was the one that got away, right? They had the beef with like the PI and stuff, and like Ikram Aliskerov, super tough test. I think he was actually the betting favorite going into that fight, so it was like it was a pleasant surprise. I don't want to get too deep into it because I know you'll do a deep breakdown, but like as it stands, just quickly, who are you leaning towards in that one?
I always underestimate Paulo Costa because he looks like a bit of a bodybuilder to me. You know what I mean? But I can never underestimate his toughness and the size of him, his athleticism. He could be really problematic. Like if he's able to hold off Chimaev and slow him down. The moments where we saw Chimaev in my eyes look vulnerable was when he was against Gilbert Burns. Burns used to be a 155er. If he was able to to slow Chimaev down in any way, you can imagine what a big lump like Paulo Costa would be able to do if he's able to keep working back to his feet. If his conditioning's on point, I think he could really wear on Chimaev and maybe impress in the later rounds, or perhaps even get a stoppage. But at this moment, I'm kind of buying into the Chimaev, the fear and the excitement, and I'm feeling like he's going to be able to take him down and face bar him or something.
Well, I can't wait for this one, man. And of course, I got to talk about fellow PFL member, your boy Francis Ngannou, scoring this big fight against Tyson Fury, man. What a historic moment in the sport. I got to ask, how happy were you to see this finally come together, especially after all the doubts about him being a free agent, people saying he was fumbling the bag, and then the event after, he signed with PFL, people were still doubting whether he'd get the big boxing match against anyone notable, but the PFL deal in itself was historic, and now, boom, he's got the biggest fish of them all and one of the best heavyweights to ever do it, and Tyson Fury in this boxing match. What do you think it says about free agency in MMA and what's actually possible?
I mean, it was a huge move to just to take the risk, of course, but to then, land on his feet is even better. And I think it opens the door for a lot of other fighters to, to think about taking that risk, taking that step, because, fighters do get to the end of their career as a, I don't know, as a sellable champion in that position. I mean, you could have said like Anderson Silva at one point, instead of continuing defending his belt, he could have stepped over and fought Roy Jones, and it wouldn't have really mattered what had happened. And he might have come back to MMA with far more determination than he did when he wasn't allowed to fight Roy Jones. I wonder what Jon Jones is going to do if he runs out of contenders. I mean, Tom Aspinall looked great at the weekend, but there are very few fighters that you're going to put in there against Jon Jones that are going to excite him as a competitor. And I think, like, imagine Jones against Deontay Deontay Wilder and Ngannou against Fury. You know, like why not? Why could those fights not happen? And of course, everyone's counting Ngannou out, and any person in the right mind would expect Tyson Fury, you know, to absolutely school him in a boxing match. But it also opens the door for other fighters to consider, well, maybe I could have like a dual career here, like, you know, someone like a Nate Diaz or a Michael Venom Page, if they're looking at where to sign, and it's either MMA, you're locked into a contract and we'll decide when you're fighting, or MMA and free agency in the boxing sense. Like, I think a lot more fighters would be interested in that. You know, my old friend Paul Daly would have loved an opportunity like that, where he could go from MMA to boxing and back. And now it looks like it's a possibility, thanks to Francis Ngannou and some open-minded people.
100%, man. It's like Dennis mentioned, it is absolutely historic for the sport. The way he kind of just gambled everything, and it looks like he's gotten everything that he wanted and more. Obviously, like, getting that fight, getting the biggest fish of them all is a win in of itself. How much do you think the outcome sort of matters in this one? And do you think if he takes a bad loss at the hands of Tyson, do you think it hurts him in any way in terms of like drawing power or anything in terms of what's next?
You know, I don't think it does, and I think, you know, this is why he'll walk into the fight with swagger, and why McGregor walked into the fight with Mayweather with swagger. You know, Ngannou summed it up himself perfectly recently. He wouldn't fight me in MMA; it would be suicidal. And of course, like that's always the get out, right? Like, it doesn't matter what sport you play. Like, if I can kick your ass and take the ball off you and walk it to the back of the net, and that's ultimately the goal, I'm going to win. You know what I mean? Like, if I can kick your ass, I'm always going to win. And no matter what happens in a boxing match, Francis Ngannou in an MMA fight, in a fight, that's a different thing. That's a different thing entirely. Like the work that Fury would have to do to be competitive against Ngannou would be far greater than the work that Ngannou will have to do to be competitive with Fury. Right, he's already got the power, so he's already got a puncher's chance. If he's aligned himself with Mike Tyson and he starts working that peekaboo style, right? Like, you're looking at Mike Tyson, who was the youngest heavyweight champion in history, who was 5'8", 5'9", like shorter than every other heavyweight. What was the thing he had to overcome? Height and reach, get around the lead hand. Like, Ngannou is going to be shorter than Tyson Fury. He'll have a reach disadvantage. So you pair it with Mike Tyson and you get him doing the aggressive peekaboo style, like, perfect. He's just increased his chances tenfold of landing a knockout punch because he's going to be able to now get close enough. Like, he's increasing his chances by the day when he's working on techniques that are going to improve his ability to land his power. And I can't help but be excited for him, even though I expect Tyson Fury to be way too much in a boxing sense. Like, it's a great journey for Francis Ngannou. He's going to come back to mixed martial arts having gained a lot from it. And I think, you know, he's kicked the doors open for a lot of fighters to really be prize fighters and go and get that money that they deserve.
And that's the greatest thing about going up against someone who's, you know, one of the GOATs of all time, like bowling against Michael Jordan or boxing against Tyson Fury. And that is that even if you have moments of brilliance in there against one of the best to ever do it, one of the best heavyweights to ever do it, you walk away with people being impressed with you being, you know, going in there competing against them like McGregor had with Floyd Mayweather. And like you mentioned, man, like when it comes to power, I'm wearing my George Foreman hoodie thing right now from Roots of Fight. Power is one of the things that no one can really control in boxing, and we've seen things happen. So let's see what happens. But yeah, so happy for Tyson. Just quickly, man, I know like UFC were in London. You mentioned Tom Aspinal. What a performance he had as well this weekend. Incredible win. Big return. Before we move on to UFC 291, I got to ask you, man, like people are talking about him and Jon Jones, and if this is the guy that's going to pose, you know, the big risk, the big challenge to Jon Jones at heavyweight, what do you think? Do you think Tom Aspinal is that challenge that Jon Jones will potentially have to face and could potentially beat Jon Jones at heavyweight?
Well, I certainly think he has the potential to beat Jon Jones at heavyweight, and I don't say that lightly, and I wouldn't say that about many people. The question whether we're going to get to see the fight or not is a different thing, because, you know, from what it sounds like, Jones is gonna retire after Stipe, and even if that's a faux retirement, he might be gone for a while, and, you know, Aspinall might clinch the heavyweight belt, and then Jones will be coming back to beat Aspinall. a multitude of things can happen. But as far as the actual matchup itself, I feel like Tom Aspinall, he ticks all the boxes, which is, it's not something we see very often at heavyweight. You've got someone like Cyril Gane that moves really well and has got good striking, but then struggles with someone who's a really strong wrestler. Or you've got someone like Stipe Miocic, who's got great fight IQ and he's got good boxing and good wrestling, but he's not the same kind of athlete that you would say Francis Ngannou is, for example. Like, you look at Tom Aspinall and you go, well, he's a great athlete. We know he's got power in his hands. We know he's got a great fight IQ, the way that he chooses his weapons and couples them together, knee to the body, elbow to the head from the same side, or the lovely little double lead hand thing that he did before he sets up his straight right at the weekend. Like, I feel like he's got everything he needs. The real question is whether Jon Jones is going to hang out long enough to meet him, because by the sounds of it, Tom wants to fight the winner in Paris between Sergey and Gane. And then, who knows where Jon Jones is going to be after that. We might just never see them cross paths, which would be disappointing. But, at the same time, it might be the right move for Jon Jones, given the fact that these heavyweights are getting bigger and faster by the day.
Do you feel like Tom is a tougher challenge than Stipe for Jon Jones?
I do at this stage. Yeah, I do, absolutely. I mean, I think Stipe's maybe, like, we've seen the best version of Stipe. I would love him to come in and really surprise me, but I don't think we're going to see a really standout performance against Jon Jones. It might be toughness, durability, but I feel like we've seen Stipe peak now, whereas Jones potentially as a heavyweight is still ready to peak. I think he's still probably finding his feet at heavyweight. Like, you look at everybody else, and I don't really know anybody else that's particularly interesting for Jon Jones, aside from Tom Aspinall. But at the same time, it might be a bit of a Floyd Mayweather Canelo situation where the best time to fight him's sooner rather than later. Like fight Tom Aspinall now, and then you don't have to come back in 18 months time and win the heavyweight belt off him, just to prove the fact that you were the greatest of all time, because now that's in question. You know what I mean? It's a very, very difficult calculation to make if you're Jon Jones, and I don't envy him. I wouldn't like to have to do it myself.
I agree. It's crazy how, like, not that long ago, heavyweight was a little bit barren and not so interesting because there was like a lack of guys at the very top and challenges. You had Gane and it was like, oh, that was exciting. And then, of course, that didn't 100% pan out. Now you got Sergey Pavlovich that a lot of people are talking about, like, man, imagine this guy versus Jon Jones. Now you got Tom Aspinall as well in the mix. So, even if, say, like, you get a double retirement with Stipe and Jon Jones moving on, you've still got some guys at the top that are like super, super interesting. And I love that Tom Aspinall versus the winner of Gane and Pavlovich fight. That's something that could be like a title fight, to be quite honest. I feel like it's that quality. But yeah, we're seeing some great fights at heavyweight. All right, looking at UFC 291, man, we've got Dustin Poirier taking on Justin Gaethje in the rematch, this time for the BMF belt. First fight was fascinating because Dustin was getting his leg chewed up by Justin until, I want to say, around the fourth round, where he adjusted and he timed Justin, and then he hurt him, and then he ended up finishing him. And that was kind of the fight also that showed Dustin the importance of, like, the calf kick, and then he started using it. No better example than against McGregor later on. I wonder, when you look at this fight, and you've also got this very improved Justin Gaethje, who realized that the brawling doesn't work, and he's become a lot more defensively sound since then. You could make the argument he's made the higher improvements. What would you say will be the biggest differences striking wise in this fight when they rematch?
You caught me at a good time because I recorded my breakdown for it today. Nice. I think this is it's really interesting for a variety of different reasons. I mean, first of all, I feel like Dustin Poirier is probably the better technical fighter all round. As far as mixed martial arts goes, I feel like Poirier's got a better handle on his skills in the thick of the fight when it gets wild. Gaethje although I think he has improved absolutely since the last fight, we still do see that recklessness in his style sometimes, and it does require his corner seam to kind of pull his leash a little bit and get him to pull his hooks a bit tighter. He does get a bit wild. He was in the Fiziev fight at times. I think you can hear Trevor Whitman in the corner saying, pull your hooks tighter. The thing with Gaethje, I feel like his evolution after the two losses, one of them being to Poirier, was quite obvious. He was far more calculated in his approach, knowing he's a power puncher, being better at delivering those power punches, especially with like Barbosa and Vic, when he had him backed up against the fence, like uncorking power shots, knowing full well they're moving on to them. It was beautiful, beautiful work. And his low kicks have always been a big facet to his game as well. But now he's not necessarily standing around as much to get punched to trade for a low kick. The other thing that we've seen as well, I think it was probably, it was his first level change in the UFC, first actual takedown. He doesn't use his wrestling, and it's always been something that was mentioned. Like DC was talking about it at the end of the last fight when, Dustin Poirier was kind of going for the home run finish, and Gaethje was like on his heels. At no point did he level change or try and wrestle or anything. And I do feel like that is something else that has potentially changed. But I do also feel like that might be his detriment, because I feel like Poirier could definitely get the better of him on the feet. I mean, he has to outstrike him because he's not going to power for power. I feel like Gaethje wins that trade every day. But the volume that Poirier put out in their last fight was incredible. I mean, he was landing 49% of his strikes, but I think he threw like 350 something. It was wild, his output, and that's partly because Gaethje's right in his face, but also Gaethje's taking some of those shots, and that's not an ideal style. And I think that we could look quite similar, especially with Poirier's movement. I think he's going to be investing in low kicks this time as well, and I think he's going to be more savvy with his defense for low kicks. But I can definitely see him kind of wearing Gaethje down, and then seeing Gaethje level change, even maybe a little bit concussed, a little bit rocked. And then level changing into one of those neck attacks that we've seen from Poirier. That wouldn't surprise me. Like it's amazing if you look at their career. Like they've both gone 6-2 since the last time they fought. They've both been submitted by Oliveira and Khabib, and they both fought Michael Chandler. But Poirier's come out better on all of those equations than Gaethje did. Like it took Khabib and Oliveira longer to submit him. And he was able to stop Chandler, whereas Gaethje beat him by decision. So, and I know that MMA math doesn't work that way necessarily, but for me, it weights the evidence in Poirier's favor. But of course, because Gaethje's got that dog in him and that fight-ending power, he can put himself in positions where he can land a single shot that changes everything. Which is again, one of the reasons why this is such an intriguing fight. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy, man. So I've got to ask, who are you leaning towards in this one? Because it sounds like maybe Dustin. And then who do you think the winner easily slots in to face the winner of Islam and Charles, especially if Islam wins? Because he hasn't faced either guy, whereas Charles has already beaten both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They kind of occupy a different space in the division for me now. Like I feel like that, like this group of lightweights, Chandler included, they're a special crop, and I feel like I don't really have any title expectations from any of them. I think they've tried and they've failed, but that doesn't mean that they haven't added a great deal to the division. Yeah, but potentially Poirier I could see moving on to a title shot, and I am leaning towards him. But I don't imagine it being any different. I could imagine a Michael Bisping type of, Makhachev versus Volkanovski. Volkanovski gets injured a couple of weeks before, and in comes Poirier, ready to cut 25 pounds to make weight, and then just catches Makhachev with a clean punch. I could see that kind of thing happening, absolutely. But I feel like we've kind of seen the limitation for both of these guys in comparison to the elite in the division, and I feel like these younger guys with a more well-rounded skill set, they're just a little bit further ahead now at this stage.
I get you. The funny thing about Volko being injured is like he was always injured earlier in his career. It was always like, I got a broken back, or I got a like a two ribs are missing, and then you're like, how the fuck did you make it through this fight? That guy is just so insanely tough. But yeah, I understand your scenario. All right, let's talk about Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira, man. Dude, this is a huge one. Like, I'm so excited about this one. Violence written all over it. Jan's obviously got that KO power. He's also got an enormous grappling advantage, which is, by all accounts, Alex's biggest kryptonite. We also saw like against Adesanya how like Jan has that like super tight, super disciplined defense. But then again, like Israel likes to counter, and Jan was kind of waiting a bit, whereas Alex sort of goes forward a lot, and then he's got that nuclear left hand. I wonder, like, if you're Jan, how do you be sort of intelligent with your takedowns so that you don't get viciously countered by an Alex Pereira? I almost feel like Jan, if he's super smart here, he'll employ almost like a Glover Teixeira-esque game plan against Alex Pereira, which, would be interesting given who Glover Teixeira is to Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, it's a difficult challenge for Jan to solve. I expect Pereira to look the bigger fighter in there. I think he's gonna really look scary at light heavyweight. I think his power transfers, of course, and that makes him even more dangerous given the fact that he can dominate space so well. But at the same time, he can also move backwards and counter strike like he did against Strickland. Just like moving that hand away from his chin. They're the kind of circumstances that concern me for Jan, because although Jan's difficult to hit, his defense is pull his head away and pull his hands kind of wide. It's not a traditional defense, and it does leave him open. And I do feel like there's a vulnerability here that Pereira is most likely going to have seen on tape. He will have prepared something for it, and I feel like Jan's gonna have to be very, very cautious in the opening minutes just to kind of figure out what Pereira's got planned for him. Like a high level striker like Pereira, he's gonna look at Jan Blachowicz' back catalogue like food. he's gonna consume it, and although Jan is a good striker and he can be very effective, especially against the likes of Rockhold, where he caught him with that beautiful hook, or the body kicks against Reyes, for example, something else that he could utilize in this fight. I don't feel like Jan wins this fight in the striking range. So then the question comes, to the question you asked, like, how does he get the fight to the floor? And what he did really well against Adesanya is that he was patient. But he was able to do that against Adesanya because, as you said, he's a counter striker, so there was time to be patient. Pereira puts him under pressure, so there might be level changing under pressure, and level changing under pressure usually results in you being set up to, run onto a knee like Adesanya did to Brunson. These are circumstances that Jan's going to have to solve in the opening minutes. The longer the fight goes, the better. And I feel like if Jan can get this fight to the floor, then absolutely Pereira will look like a fish out of water. And not because his ground game's not improving, just that Jan's very, very good. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I also, and one other point I'll add to that, I feel like Jan's a good grappler when he believes he's the better grappler. Like, this is a weird conundrum I found myself thinking about when it comes to Jan. Like, you look at his fight against Gustafsson, and it was like, oh well, I'm okay here because like he's the better grappler. It was almost like he accepted the position, whereas against Krylov, he felt like he was the better grappler, and he proved it. And I feel like he knows he's the better grappler against Adesanya. He knows he's the better grappler than Pereira, and with that confidence, as long as he's timing on his takedowns right, I think he runs away with the fight on the canvas. It's just on the feet where I'll be holding my breath for him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fascinating thing, right? Because we're going to see a different Alex Pereira. He's not boiling himself down to 185. And when you look at Pereira, you're like, how is this guy making it to middleweight? Because we all saw photos of him when he's around the light heavyweight mark, and it looks like he doesn't have a shred of fat on him. So this guy was coming right down. We don't know how much that affected his punching power, and we don't know how much that affected his chin as well, and how much damage he could take. What was he even seeing straight in that octagon on fight night? This isn't the kind of guy that would complain. At least Darren Till type weight cuts where, they have to drag him out of the sauna room the night before, and he just accepts it because he's just a warrior. So I wonder, what kind of Alex Pereira do you think we'll see at 205? And then on the other side of things, do you think the added cardio of being at a higher weight might be able to deal with the Jan sitting on top of him if he does take him down and give him a little bit of extra energy?
I think there's a variety of different benefits from him moving up a weight class, and first of all, as you said, he's not boiling himself down to 185. Like, if you stand next to the guy, I just don't know how he steps on the scales at 185 pounds. His skeleton looks too big, to be honest. You know what I mean? It's like he's massive.
Next to Tyson Fury, you're like, they're not that different.
It's crazy. I mean, you just don't realize the size of the guy until you see him in person, and I feel like moving up to this weight class is going to allow him to grow into his body a little bit more, something that he's been working against for a number of years to keep his weight down. I feel like it's almost like there's a sigh of relief that the body goes through, and then all of a sudden you've got 5 pounds of muscle on you that you've been waiting to grow for a couple of years. I feel like he's going to look thicker and stronger. I think his neck's going to be thicker, which is going to make him more difficult to knock out. I think his back's going to be thicker, which means he's going to be stronger with his takedown defense. There are just, I only really see benefits because he's not going to be undersized. If he's going to be outskilled by someone, that could happen at middleweight just as much as it could at light heavy. And I think we're going to see a healthier version of him. It's almost like Zabit. I know he's been flying around on my Instagram feed about his immediate title shot. Like, he should have been a 155er. Like that, there's no doubt about it. That's why he never took a fight over 5 rounds, because he would have dropped off. Like, he always looked great for the first 8 minutes, and then he crashed. Right? Like, I feel like Pereira can fight hard over 25 minutes at 205. I feel like the muscle mass that he'll gain, as well as the lack of process of draining the muscles before he fights, is going to mean that his muscular endurance is going to be better, so he won't be cramping and fatiguing quicker. Like, I'm just excited to see him at this weight class, and I think once we see him as a legitimate 205er, we're going to wonder how ever he made 185.
Oh yeah, 100%, dude. I'm so excited, man. And like, this fight has the perfect opportunity for like anybody to slot into title contention. You got Yuri, who's like ready to come back. Him versus like Pereira, or even him versus Jan. It's just got like fireworks written all over it. I can't wait, man. The big question though is, where are you watching UFC 291? A great event to be watching at the pub with the boys or the missus. Grab a pub meal, and Fanzo is the best in the world at helping you find said pub. A lot of times you want to know, does the pub have commentary? How many screens? Is there a beer garden? It saved me a lot of times when we were going to go watch the fights at a pub, and then you find out there's actually no commentary. No, thank you. I like to hear everything when we enjoy the action. Check it out right now in real time. I'm on the Fanzo app. You click on Poirier vs. Gaethje 2 as far as the big fixtures go, and then it loads up all the pubs in your location. So let's go the Langwarren Hotel for argument's sake. 3.9 rating. You've got all these little buttons where you can click on their website. You can, well, okay, they don't have a phone number attached. You can click on the map and it takes you straight to the location. One screen. Dude, I'm sorry, the Langwarren Hotel just isn't going to cut it. What about the Hotel Brighton? See if that's doing anything good. Better ratings. One screen. Nah, I'm not doing that either. What about the Royal Oak? The Royal Oak. I think we've...
Royal Oak.
The Royal Oak. 10 screens, commentary, serves food, Wi-Fi, beer garden, projector, outdoor screen. See, there you go. You're avoiding making stupid mistakes, and the Royal Oak Hotel wins by default. I think there's some other pubs we've checked out that have like 20 screens and another one that has 50 screens. So you can browse to your heart's content and find the best venue for you and your mates, thanks to Fanzo. Isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. It's the ultimate venue finder. Go to Fanzo right now and start searching. You got to secure that perfect venue for this weekend. And don't forget to go through the link in our description that will take you straight to the event page and get you going right now. Fanzo, the best venue finder there is for the UFC, Cass.
That's right. And when you go, make sure you look your best with our good friends at Manscaped with the Beard Hedger Pro. Unlike me, looking scruffy. It's been a few busy days for me, a few sleepless nights. I'm looking a bit shit. I need something to trim this disgusting looking beard and get rid of this neck beard. The Beard Hedger Pro, get this, the rotary wheel has 20 different precision settings for you for different lengths. And I've said this a million times. I like the sides a little bit shorter, just one setting shorter than the bottom. My previous beard trimmers, you had like little attachments. You take them on and off. They drop in the shower. All this kind of annoying stuff. With the Beard Hedger Pro, nice and easy. It's got the 41mm titanium coated T-blade for a comfortable trim and blade durability. The rotary zoom wheel with 20 precision length settings for a custom length trim. You got the advanced lift comb, which lifts flat-lying hairs for smooth single-stroke trimming. You got the battery. It's rechargeable. It's waterproof, so you can just smash it in the shower while you're cleaning yourself. Everything to make yourself the best version of yourself. And also, the Beard Hedger Pro kit comes with Beard Hedger itself, beard shampoo, beard conditioner, beard oil, beard balm, and free gifts, the beard brush, the beard comb, and the beard scissors. What else could you possibly want? Isn't that right, Dennis?
That's right, man. When I opened that kit, when me and Casper got it, it was an experience. Manscaped delivers every single time. You think, I'm just opening a normal little box here, and it just delivers with the way they set up the box, the beautiful artwork, the way they set out all the accessories. You're basically set for life when it comes to your beard stuff with one kit. And if you want to get it as a gift to someone, this is the perfect time because you can save 20% off and get free shipping now with the code word submission. This Beard Hedger is a game changer. It feels premium. It's a real changer for me because usually these things are plastic and they run out of battery. This thing's here to last, and you can grab one today, Cass.
There you go, man. Get on it. All right, going back to UFC 291, you've also got Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green, which it's a good matchup in the sense of like, all right, they're kind of giving Tony that Legends World Tour that they very, very, very rarely do. We had the Nate Diaz fight last time. Now you got Bobby Green. They're sort of similar kind of like veterans. But man, it's still a like really, really, really tough test for Tony. You know, Bobby's kind of had this like late career resurgence. He always has the hand speed, very, very tricky on the feet. His takedown defense is great. Like, if you're a Tony fan, this might be a bit of a tough watch. I wonder how you're sort of looking at it, Dan. If you're Tony and you want to beat Bobby, what do you have to do in this situation?
You know, this fight is really about who finds their rhythm first, because when they're both cruising, they're both lethal. Like when Bobby Green's walking forward with his hands down, just chatting away, like it's very, very difficult to land anything of significance because it just rolls off him. He's so loose with his upper body, you know, and then he's able to roll that power back with his counters. Like if Bobby Green gets into that state, then it's going to be difficult to land anything to hurt him, and it's going to be really difficult to get in on his legs and take him down. And on the other side, if you get Tony Ferguson, who just like is that chaotic Tasmanian devil of elbows and knees and you know, whatever kind of crazy wrestling he's going to choose to do, that could put Bobby Green on the back foot, put him off his rhythm, and then Tony Ferguson takes over the fight. Like they're both so set in their styles that really it's which one's going to be stronger on the night. I'm leaning slightly towards Bobby Green, to be honest, just because I feel like the damage that Tony Ferguson's taken, you know, against Gaethje, etc., like that does follow you around, and Bobby Green is, you know, even in his losses, he's never looked particularly beaten up. Do you know what I mean? He's always seemed to, he's been outpointed, he's been outclassed, but he's never been really, really beaten up, you know, and that's something that you can't say about Tony Ferguson, and something that I think will be evident in the first round, you know, whether Tony can get into that rhythm or whether he's just going to get walked down and shut down by Bobby Green. But I mean, I'm disappointed there's not like a King of California belt on this or something.
Yeah.
It feels like there should be like an additional title belt on this one.
I know. Well, Steven's got the NMF belt. We've got the BMF belt. Then we've got the King of California belt, you know, the Legends belt. Who knows? There should be a tag team belt. Who knows? Hardcore title. Someone comes into the cage with a trash can and a trolley full of goods. Who knows? It's going to have a cage match. But I was going to ask you, man, like, and you just said it, like, Tony, right? Like, he's taken a lot of damage throughout his career. And the guy is one of the best lightweights to ever do it. And a friend of the show, he comes on here. We've had so many great moments with him, and me and Casper have been lucky enough to see him live and have all these iconic moments as well. But you also think a guy like Tony, he deserves to ride off into the sunset after everything that he's done in the sport and be able to have a good quality of life. You know, he's got a family and go on to that next chapter whenever he's ready to do it. What point do you think enough is enough? Like if things are a little bit messy in that octagon this weekend and we see Tony take more damage, and I mean, he's at a point where you don't want to see him take any more damage than he really should. When do you think is enough is enough for Tony to sort of, you know, potentially look at doing something else or get moved on to the next chapter? Because the thing with Tony is he's too tough for his own good. He's a warrior. He's that guy that's riding on the top of the horse, going into battle when he's like 60. You know what I mean? Like he's not backing down ever. And that's what makes it such a tough situation.
I agree. I mean, it's such a difficult thing for fighters to do. I mean, we've seen it recently with, you know, Robbie Lawler. You know, he went out on his own terms. That's a very unusual thing and a very difficult thing to do as well. You know, usually fighters get to the stage where they've got their ass kicked a few times and it's like, right, like I can't take another ass kicking right now at this point in my career. You know, like Marlon Moraes, you know, he's had such a great career, but those last couple of knockouts, it's like it's just the right thing to do. And I feel like if Tony does have a bad performance in this fight against Bobby Green, then it's absolutely time. Like I do, you know, this is probably the UFC's best attempt at giving him the opportunity to ride off into the sunset. You know, you've got someone that walks you down with their hands at their waist. It's a perfect scrappy fight for Tony Ferguson to do what he does best. But if Tony Ferguson isn't, you know, the person that he used to be, then Bobby Green can absolutely, you know, find him and catch his chin. It's just that awkward thing in combat sports where, you know, when do you hang them up, and do you ever, and is it anybody else's choice aside from the fighters? That's another thing. Like if Tony wants to keep fighting every weekend and the doctors keep clearing him, then who are we to tell him to stop getting his ass kicked every weekend? People just love the rush sometimes. You know what I mean? It's as long as they're matched right and they're healthy and they're cleared to fight, I don't mind it necessarily. But I do agree that at this level, the damage on Tony Ferguson is starting to show, and it might this weekend.
It might be some of the strangest in octagon chatter that we've seen in quite some time. Bobby Green with his words, Tony Ferguson possibly responding. But before we wrap up, Dan, I just want to quickly end on you, man, because I saw there were a few cheeky social media teasers from your end about, I don't know, it kind of looks like maybe Dan Hardy is dusting off the old gloves and potentially getting ready to get back in there, man. Am I getting the right feeling here? Is there some momentum here? Are we actually working towards a return here? What's the latest, man?
You know, I'm sure you guys get sick of asking me this question. Look, I'll be honest. I was quite happy to kind of focus on my new job and, you know, focus on Veronica's career and let her be the fighter. But then, you know, I get a phone call the other week and someone's been calling the PFL asking to fight me. So I think he basically wants to be on the Ngannou pay-per-view card. That's what I've figured out from the circumstance, and he feels like I'm an easy candidate. I'm never going to retire. I just can't imagine it. I can't imagine going, yep, this is definitely my last one out there. I just love it too much, especially when someone asks to fight me. So I'm out in the US soon. I'll be out in San Antonio for the event over there. If he's there, I'm sure you'll see some photos or videos of us squaring off, because people don't call my name out and get away with it. Not at 41, not at 61, not at 81. I'll fight someone. I'm always ready to throw down, and I don't get the same impression from him. So we'll gut check him when I see him and see if I can get ink on a contract finally.
Okay, can you give us a little clue as to who this might be? Any teasers?
All I'll say is he used to hold a UFC title. That's all I'll say.
Wow.
I'll wait for the rest of it to flesh itself out, because he's had a contract before with my name on it and he never signed it. So, you know, that was boxing. Maybe this will entice him differently given the fact that it's MMA. But I don't think so. I think if he closes his eyes, he visualizes the pressure that I'm going to put him under, and he cracks before he's even got out of bed.
Is it Tyron Woodley? All right, we shall see. Oh man, I can't wait. I'm excited. San Antonio, get here already.
Dan Hardy's like Beetlejuice. You say his name a few times. Watch out, because he's going to appear in front of you, and you're going to have to fight him on the Tyson Fury card. Oh, by the way, is this in boxing, Dan, or is this in MMA?
No, this will be in the PFL Smart Cage. This will be in MMA 4-ounce gloves.
Yeah,
Ooh.
interesting. Okay. All right, we'll follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Dan Hardy MMA. Look out for that gut check. I can't wait. Of course, Full Reptile for the phenomenal breakdowns and previews. Dan Hardy Breakdown Show on BT Sport. You mentioned you just finished recording the preview. Of course, the War Room, and you book Part Reptile. Dan, always lovely chatting with you, man. I'm very excited about the card. Very excited about potentially seeing you come back. We'll definitely be chatting soon, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, man. Thanks, Dan. Have a great night. Bye.